So welcome everybody to Interfaith Insights. Just before we wait for everybody to come, our audience to find us on Facebook, we have a nice kind of gentle conversation to see how everybody's week has been, and then I will share some positive stories that have come to my attention over the last few days. So does anybody have any positive stories you want to tell us? First of all, what's been happening in people's lives this week? Joe?
I have a new grandson arriving on or about July the 5th in Edinburgh. And I always think when people choose and are fortunate enough to have a baby, that it's a sign of hopefulness, it's a sign of believing in the future. And our new grandson has an older brother who's 3.5 years older. And to help climatize him to the experience of being an older brother, I said, is there anything you'd like Papa to do for you? And he said, I would like you to knit me something. Well, I actually know how to knit. And Ian, I'm now knitting furiously.
Wow.
Joe, you know how to knit. Where did that come from?
I learned it in university. When I was a theater major years ago, we did a production of Shakespeare, and to create the chain mail costume, we knitted it out of boxing string, heavy boxing string. And then you would spray paint it yellow, spray paint it silver. And so that's how I learned to knit, and I have been knitting ever since.
Yeah, I was thinking it was because you were a modern man and you were embracing different things of being a modern man, but of course it was your theatrical background.
That too. But you know, if your grandchild asks you to do something, you do it.
Do it. You do it, exactly.
Well, I don't think I'm going to struggle to talk.
Chainmail baby grow? A chainmail baby grow from what?
Well, he wants trousers. So I'm actually seeing if I can make my first pair of trousers. Thank goodness his wee legs are only this long.
Well, I think I'm going to find it hard to top those that fantastic news that you've had, Joe, and we wish you all the best for mother and baby. I'm going to start with some positive stories that I've come across recently. The first one is an Aberdeenshire church that has donated more than £5,000 to a secondary school to buy Chromebook laptops for the students. As you know, students have all got to do the learning from home at the moment, and for those who maybe just come from poorer backgrounds, it can be very difficult. So it's great that that church has managed to do that. The other two topics I want to talk about, we're verging on a little bit on the political, but I think they are important. Netflix CEO Reed Hastings and his wife, Patty Quillen, on Wednesday announced that they are committing $120 million to the United Negro College Fund and to 2 historically black colleges as part of the fight for racial justice spurred by the killing of George Floyd. Hastings and Quillen will donate $40 million to the college fund and $40 million each to Spelman College and Morehouse College, both historically black and based in Atlanta. And that's to support student scholarships at historically black colleges and universities. I think this is an important step. And Cynthia might even want to comment at one point. I mean, we've been talking a lot. It's coming to my mind as we've been talking about what Scotland's role has been with the slave trade, etc. Are there businesses in Scotland, for example, who might want to follow suit of Netflix and look at, we want to use the phrase reparations, but and remember Glasgow University not that long ago was one of the first universities to acknowledge their role and to actually put some funds into this area. Cynthia, have you got any comments on that? Oh, unmute yourself. Sorry.
I always forget this. Well, I mean, that's good news, and that's obviously a step in the right direction. And I'm really pleased when people want to do things to promote diversity. But the thing where we all get stuck is when people want to include Black people, it's always referred back to slavery. You know, it's always referred back to slavery, and slavery isn't our history. Slavery interrupted our history. We were kings and queens. We had lives before slavery happened. So we can't always be putting it back to slavery. If we're serious about educating people about diversity, then we need to embrace everything about Black culture, not just in the past, but in the present. Everything that Black people are contributing to society right now, not just struggles that our forefathers had, struggles that we are facing now, here and now, need to be addressed. And paying attention to a history book is not enough for us to say that we are paying attention to diversity issues. We need to deal with the present, and it's very uncomfortable, but it needs to happen.
Great, and we'll touch on more on that later, but I think that's very, very well put. And you know what, there are echoes of this sometimes when, Joe, we won't go into much detail here, but one of the criticisms I often heard from the Jewish community, and I even had someone talking about this through university courses when they looked at world religions, is when they focused on the Jewish community, they focused on the Holocaust, rather than focusing on the rich Jewish culture and all the contributions. It's almost as if you become defined by the Holocaust, or you become defined by slavery. Actually, these are such beautiful cultures that have so much else that we need to be learning and celebrating. And I think that's a really, really strong point Cynthia's made there.
Well, I agree with Cynthia, because we too were kings and queens, you know? So we both have royal heritage, and we should celebrate that as well as embrace the tragedy that has happened. But we shouldn't be defined by the tragedy. We should be defined by our entire history.
Amen. And the final story I was going to touch on was Marcus Rashford tackling this is more about the Westminster government decision on free school meals. Boris Johnson agreed to continue providing free food vouchers for some of England's poorest families over the summer, following a campaign by the footballer Marcus Rashford. The number 10 had initially pledged to end the £15 a week vouchers, but because of his campaign, they've reinstated it. And there was a wonderful quote from Marcus Rashford at the end where he said, "Just look at what we can do when we come together." And I think we can all echo that. That's really what we're all about today. So big up to Marcus Rashford. It shows that individuals can make that big difference. So I think now lots of people will have joined us now. So good afternoon and welcome to Interfaith Insights. This is a program that really looks at the positive influence that faith can have in helping people to make positive changes in the world. And you can watch more of our programs here on the Edinburgh Interfaith Facebook page and also on the YouTube channel. We've now uploaded, believe it or not, this is the 8th episode that we've done. So you can watch more of those celebrity interviews and shows on the YouTube channel. Today, as always, we're joined by Naseem and Joe. We have a great show lined up today. And last week we were looking at faith and refugees, and today we are looking at the topic of health and faith, faith and medicine. And we've got some fantastic guests lined up. We have Naseem, who will be in a minute speaking to Zuhair Girach, if I got that correct. Apologies for any pronunciation I got it wrong, who's the founder of AAfiyah Healing, holistic wellbeing consultant. So that will be fascinating to hear about. We also have Dr. Ruhy Parris, a medical doctor, member of the Baha'i community and a long-serving member of the Edinburgh Interfaith Association. And I'm joined by a long-term friend of mine, singing sensation, and I now have to call her an activist, and really big part of the Black Lives Matter protests in Edinburgh. Cynthia Gentle, welcome. It's lovely to have you on the show. And as always, we welcome feedback from our audience or questions that our audience might want to put to us during the show, things that you've enjoyed, or maybe questions that you would like to ask our guest. But we start always with Naseem Azad. I don't know if you have a video for us this week, Naseem.
I do. Good afternoon, welcome to everybody. Yes, I actually do have a video. I recorded a vlog literally next door because it's my neighbour. She's such a wonderful, wonderful woman, so knowledgeable in terms of the topic we're touching on today. Healing, I mean, there's all types of healing, but we spoke about food because that's very important, what we put inside our bodies. So I think Ken is just putting that video up now. Yeah, that's it. The topic this week is faith and healing. And So I'm here with my very, very dear friend, Afshan Chaudhary, who happens to be my neighbour, but she's the most inspirational woman that I know in terms of well-being, in terms of, and you know.
Oh, thank you.
But you are Afshan, you are amazing. And the best thing about Afshan is she's always got supplies when I'm short of eggs or sugar or milk. She's the best neighbour you could ever want. So.
That's right. So today what I've done, I've got this table set to give people an idea of what kind of meals they should be having in a typical day, and how to actually form a strategy in terms of eating. So really what you have to do, first of all, get rid of all the nasties in your cupboards. Okay.
That's the hard part, actually.
That is probably the easiest part, in the sense you just give it away, you know. Yeah, you're right, it's really difficult because we've got our secret supplies somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, you know, really what you want to do is when you go out shopping for food, you want to spend most of the time when you're in that supermarket or the, you know, the small store, the local convenience store, whatever you go for your bits and pieces, you want to start with the food aisle that's the freshest, which is the vegetable and the fruits. So there you want to pick things that are in season. So going for things that are in season: fresh strawberries, raspberries, melon, grapes, even pomegranates. I mean, I'm not sure when pomegranates are peak season, but I love them so much because they're full of antioxidants. Absolutely fantastic.
What do antioxidants do?
So antioxidants fight inside your body, so it stops most illnesses because it's fighting the free radicals that are there, that are accumulating. So there are so many websites, so many places you can look at that and kind of really dwell into it. It's a complete necessary thing that you have to have. Phytonutrients are in all plants, and they are packed with different things that your body needs in order to stay well, in order to function for all processes, really.
So Afshan, how to cook all this delicious food? What's the best kind? Is it oil? What kind of oil? Rapeseed oil, sunflower oil?
Of course,
What's the best way to use
I
it?
am a big advocate again of coconut oil. At room temperature, that's what it looks like.
Okay.
Even a couple of tablespoons of that every day is so good for you. It's good for liver function, for mental well-being. It takes away your cravings. It helps you digest your food because it absorbs all the nutrients, especially the fat-soluble calcium and magnesium that you really need. It fights inflammation and it helps insulin resistance.
Wow, that's alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. You know, we talked about olive oil, we talked about olives over there, we talked about fruit, the fig and honey. You know, all these are food items that are mentioned in the Quran. So Afshan, thank you so much for sharing your immense knowledge, and you know, alhamdulillah, it's just what we put inside is very, very important in terms of, you know, we take tablets. Why do we need to take tablets? You know, these are natural tablets that God has given us. Why do we not use these instead of?
It's just, I think it's just how we're just in a really kind of a fast-paced environment, society. We just want to get things quicker than actually rethinking the whole thing and thinking that nature is actually best. Nature is best because we've got everything that we need in the foods, and all we need to do is eat more of the good stuff. So if we eat more greens, I would say maybe 4 times that. 4 times more than that is good for you, honestly. And your body will just thank you, because the way I look at it is like, why not do something today that yourself will thank you tomorrow, later.
Wow, I couldn't end anything, you know, ending anything more positive and inspirational. Thank you so much, Afshan. Jazakallah.
Jazakallah.
Thanks very much, Carrie, for playing that video. Afshan is such a knowledgeable lady, and she's such a, I mean, you can see how softly spoken she is. She's very passionate about all the things that she spoke about there. And it's important that, you know, especially during the lockdown, just before the show started, we were all talking about how everybody has started to bake and make cakes, and all this is not good for you, because we, you know, everybody's clothes are magically, you know, have reduced in size, and nobody's trousers are fitting, nobody's skirts are fitting, and that's because everybody's cooking at home. I know we have to pass the time, but we should really kind of to make conscious decisions, because, you know, to be honest, we don't know how long we're going to be we're going to be in the lockdown. So we need to make sort of more positive choices. So thank you very much, Afsha, for that. And I know she's watching. So on to my next guest. Welcome, Zuhair Girach. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
So Zuhair, I think I met you, was it about 1.5 years ago? You did a workshop in Edinburgh on AAfiyah healing. Vince has already introduced you as the AAfiyah healing founder. So my first question is, what does AAfiyah actually mean? And also, when did that kind of concept come about? When did you feel there was a void that you needed to fill to share AAfiyah healing?
Okay, thank you very much. And hello to all our viewers and my panel. Afiyah is an Arabic word, okay? Afiyah is an Arabic word that loosely translated in English would mean holistic well-being, okay? And there was a prayer that was asked from the Prophet, peace be upon him, to say, "O Prophet of God, give me a prayer that will suffice me in everything." And he was said, repeat, "Allahumma inni as'aluka al-afiyah." Oh Allah, I ask from you afiyah. And so he was said that, well, what is afiyah? And he said, afiyah is everything. So holistic well-being will mean it'll be for your body, for your mind, and for your spirit. So we find today, you know, in modern medicine that when we go to the doctor, he's able to put a bandage and put a plaster on our wounds. And then if it's anything more than that, then off you go to the psychiatrist, go to the counselor, someone, and speak to someone else. And then after that, if you still, you know, have that void, we need to go even further. So when we go even further, then we end up with, you know, our scholars and religious people that might be able to offer some philosophical insight that might just fill another little void. I wanted a one-stop shop that clients can come to us with a physical pain, an emotional disturbance, or a spiritual sort of void, and we can nourish them in every aspect. And so this is what, now my background was in business and management. So I worked with the big blue chip companies in London for a while after graduating. I went on a lot of their personal development courses that they sent us on, management training and all the rest of it. But every time I'd go back after the training slot and say to my trainers, Islam already has this. We've already been taught this, of good character, of good companionship, of how to, you know, behave in a way that, you know, uplifts other people, to speak respectfully, to all of these things that whatever you're telling me, we know this. And so suddenly there was this void, and again, within the Muslim community, and I know with the other faiths as well, we're very reserved. Okay, we are very reserved, and everything outside of what our teachings are, cultural teachings are, it's all taboo out there. And so this is where I wanted to marry up Islamic knowledge and the knowledge that is available in the Western world, meaning in the English text, and deliver it back to our communities to say that there's nothing wrong with it. Certain things that do contradict the faith outright, fine. That's where my Islamic knowledge comes and says, okay, we can't do this, but we can do this. You know, there's 90% of the content that is shared by all civilizations, that is shared by all of faiths, such as, you know, be good to people, don't steal from people, don't harm people. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said that the Muslim is he who others are safe from his hands and from his tongue. And my question normally to my audiences is, where do emotional problems come from? It's someone has said something to you, or someone has done something to you. And this is amazing. And so again, this will resonate across all faiths. And so I wanted that for the Muslim community, there is a go-to modality that they can come and learn safely within the bounds of their faith and not feel like they're going to be thrown out because of what they're doing. So that's where AAfiyah healing comes from.
And that's very interesting that you've mentioned the mental kind of awareness side of it, because that in itself is a massive taboo subject.
Absolutely.
On its own as well. So that's good that that's been acknowledged, because to me, you know, if you're very healthy and happy and confident here, I would say that manifests throughout your body in terms of the way you act and how you live your life and how you react with others.
Yeah. And that's what the secret is that whatever thoughts you allow to pass through your mind is exactly what your body will respond to. Okay, and if we look in the current climate, which is amazing, and Cynthia, you'll agree with me over here, is the fact that when you propagate this environment and this emotion of fear excessively throughout the world, Okay, what happens to people? And what's happening now since this coronavirus decided to show up? That everyone is told that, and what is the fear that's being propagated? You will die, okay? And that's it. Now everyone's jumped back. I don't want to die. Let's just stay home. Let's stop doing everything and we will obey. And then we've just got our heads down. And that is not serving a purpose, okay? Now, after all of COVID, suddenly Black Lives Matter, huh? Suddenly, okay? And what's the slogan that goes with Black Lives Matter? I can't breathe. Do you see the link? Okay, I can't breathe and you're gonna die. And what's the outcome of COVID? Pneumonia. Again, you can't breathe. Okay, so keep repeating that slogan. And as it sort of instills into your mind, it will start to manifest in your body. On top of that, you can't breathe. Your body is believing you can't breathe. Put on a mask so you can't breathe a bit more. And so we really have to understand the games that are being played in order that, you know, we're just falling prey to all of this. And so this is why it's so important of understanding the emotional consequences of the environment in which we live, to be able to have some form of control and self-control coming back to us.
Wow, that's very prominent. That I hadn't thought of it that way, but you've
now you will.
you've certainly made some links there. Yeah. So you've mentioned the physical side of it, the mental health side of it. So, for example, how does it work? I mean, I know right now you're probably doing your surgeries or your classes, consultations online, but is it face to face? You sit and talk to somebody, or is there any kind of massage going on? How does that healing take place?
Healing doesn't have to be through touch, okay? And even though my modality, some of it is touch where there's physical pain involved, but the reality is that energy follows thought. Energies follow thought. So whatever you think about, your energies will go there. And in the same way, if I've got healing energy in my hands and you've got a backache, I can, you know, connect my mind to your back and the energy goes there. Okay, that's it. We live by this all day long, isn't it? We have people who sit here today, but their mind is preoccupied by traumas that happened 20 years ago, 30 years ago. They're still consumed in that same behavior. And so the same way, wherever you put your mind, your energy goes there. So throughout my, like just this weekend gone, I had an online workshop. So I had people from Australia, America, the UK, South Africa, and I'm able to, you know, deliver the content just, you know, through the blessing of this Zoom. And again, that's amazing because now we can reach even more people. So not everything about, you know, the lockdown is doom and gloom, because there's so much more that has opened up with regards to our abilities and the people. And another amazing thing is that in order to survive, okay, and part of being strong in faith is to be flexible. Okay, you have to allow yourself that every time an obstacle comes in our way, what do we need to do? And those that are rigid and those that are stuck in their ways are ultimately the losers in it. And so as we remain fluid and we work our way around these obstacles, it opens up new opportunities. It allows us to now find new ways of thriving as well. And this is amazing because now we've got this opportunity to be sitting together here from different parts of, you know, the country, and it's amazing.
Yeah, no, that sounds fantastic. One thing I wanted to ask was, got this written down. So, oh yes, I love listening to case studies because I think that's what kind of puts it into perspective, how this healing takes place. For example, have you got a couple of case studies that you could maybe share with us?
Oh, well, I don't know what a case study would be, but anything that anyone has. So in my role as the founder of AAfiyah Healing, I deliver 3 different workshops at 3 stages. One is become a practitioner yourself, become a healer. And I'll teach you the basics of how to do some healing so that you can work with pain and how you can work with emotions. So this is almost like a first aid kit that every person in the household must have for themselves and for their children. The second thing that I then teach is the deep trauma release masterclass. And in the deep trauma is all those chronic conditions that people suffer with, like, you know, arthritis, autoimmune diseases, or anything to do with personal self-limiting beliefs. I am not good enough. And a lot of the times for most people, it is, I procrastinate. Okay, I'm a professional. I've got the certificate here somewhere. But ultimately, when you identify what is it that keeps stopping me from moving forward, it is the feeling of not being worthy. And where did that belief system actually find its way into my mind. It happened in the first 6-7 years of childhood. And we all have those experiences. We all have those experiences. So whenever we do the deep trauma release, we're using the symptoms that you're manifesting now, taking you back into your childhood and detaching you from them and bringing you back. Because, like when we watch these sci-fi movies of time travel, don't touch anything. You touch something, yes, something else is going to happen there. So in the same way, we go to our past and we touch something. Okay, we change that belief. We change that feeling. No, my dad was not nasty to me. He wanted good for me. And once that belief system changes, something changes today. So we have endless number of case studies, because I've been teaching this for the last 12 years. So, anything from, well, I shouldn't say we've cured anything, but we've facilitated in the healing processes of things like cancers, of, chronic conditions, of, serious self-limiting beliefs. I've even had, in April, I had a lady who is a counselor, in a very high ranking position. For 30 years, she's been helping the community at grassroots level. So you'd imagine she's got all the experience necessary, but then she attended my course. And suddenly there was cognitive dissonance because she's been through NLP, counseling, hypnotherapy. And suddenly we've given her some simple tasks that she can just utilize and see results immediately. I am totally anti-talking therapies, okay? Because we've talked our whole lives, we still have those same problems. So rather than working with problems, tell me what your problem is now, tell me what she said, what he said, what was she wearing, what was he wearing, not interested. What is the emotion that you feel as a result of that incident that happened to you? Let's work with the emotion.
Wow, that really gets to the core of that, because
absolutely,
it's the emotions, and we've all had experiences, very sad experiences, and you're kind of stuck that. So from my understanding is that is stuck there, and you need to kind of time travel back the way, and then remove that, so that then that will have a very positive impact, and you can in fact then move forward.
Yeah, make peace with your past, because while you hold on to your past, then you don't move, and the people around you that you're holding that grudge against, that's not moving either. Anger is a poison you drink hoping the other person dies, but they don't die. You're dying in the process of it. Wow. So it's like we just need to create this awareness, and there is such a massive need in each of our communities, because like this, I'm very open to opening up my modality to all the communities, but I just feel that our Muslim community is hemorrhaging. Okay, and we need someone and focus and attention to actually work on this first, so that there's a massive demand and need in every community, but we need to understand what are the root causes of these problems.
Yeah. And I think this AAfiyah healing can transcend all faiths and communities.
Absolutely.
Because, I think that's very powerful what you said about the fact that make peace with the past. And it's no matter who you are, we all do have these kind of obstacles that in our past lives. I just want to thank you so much for coming along today. I really appreciate Zuhair, you coming along and very valuable knowledge. And just really say that, I wish AAfiyah healing, AAfiyah peace, really for everybody. Thank you for coming along to share that, Zuhair.
So incredible. I actually think I'm going to have to watch this back, because there was lots of golden nuggets of things. I could see Cynthia nodding along as well, and we'll touch on bits later, but fantastic. Yeah, so much has resonated with me, that we are often, slaves to our past, and we get caught too much up in what others think of us and say about us. And really, that was fantastic. Joe, over to you now with a special guest, Dr. Ruhy Parris.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be joined today by Dr. Parris. But first, I wanted to thank Mr. Zuhair Girach for that wonderful, wonderful, inspiring presentation. It reminded me of a book that I read many years ago by Dr. Norman Cousins entitled Anatomy of an Illness. Dr. Cousins, unfortunately, was diagnosed with connective tissue disease. They thought he was going to die. He was in great pain. They essentially sent him home to die. And he instead checked himself into a hotel and brought along movies of the Marx Brothers, the Three Stooges, Charlie Chaplin, and he literally laughed himself back to health. And he called the book Anatomy of an Illness that documents that. So what you're saying is truly not just what in America they would call a alternative medicine, but it's a complementary treatment for traditional medicine. And I'm so pleased that Dr. Parris is here today because she has a long experience with our beloved NHS. She is also a longtime member of the Board of Trustees of the Edinburgh Interfaith Association, goes back almost to the beginning or to the beginning of the association. So Ruhy, I'm wondering, since you're both a doctor and a person of faith, as a member of the faith community, how does faith potentially influence well-being and health in your mind?
Thank you for that lovely introduction, Joe. And again, I take this opportunity to thank Zuhair Girach for a wonderful presentation. And so much of what you said, Zuhair, resonates with my own beliefs and experiences, particularly when you said that about 90% of what we all believe in, the different faiths, is the same. Because truly, we are all the same human family. We all believe in the same God. We have different messengers sent at different times according to the particular ailments that we have as a human race, as a human family at that time. And, you know, faith is so important in our journey. So me as a person of faith and being a doctor, I don't see that as a contradiction at all. I see it as part of my identity. We all have intersecting identities. You know, I'm a doctor, I'm a person of faith, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, I love Zumba, I love going to the film house. I've got many, many intersecting circles of interests and friends with so many different and varied people. But my profession and my faith are equally important to me. And the way I look upon it is that as a Baha'i, that illnesses can be both physical and emotional, and we cannot separate the treatment at all. We have to work with both the physical and the emotional level. Now, that does not mean that the power of prayer on its own will cure somebody. Far from it. But medicine has been given to us as a tool, as an instrument by, you know, our all-loving creator that we can use. And likewise, we cannot rely just on physical means alone. You know, when I look at so many patients that I've treated, so many family members I have known and friends, that it's not been just an operation or a new treatment, but the power of prayer from, you know, family, from friends, from people who don't even know that individual, that has been so helpful and helping in the journey towards wellness. So I see that faith and medicine have to work hand in hand.
That's absolutely spot on. But I'm wondering, Ruhy, in the post-COVID-19 world, after we've gotten our arms around this terrible pandemic, how do you think faith, belief, spirituality might help us in terms of our recovery as both individuals and a society?
A very good question, and one that Zuhair himself touched on as well. Before COVID, we were all in our little hamster wheel. We were all busy, constantly busy doing things and pursuing things that we thought were important to us. And then this worldwide phenomenon has happened, COVID-19. You know, we haven't had a pandemic like this since 1918, 1920 with the Spanish influenza epidemic. So it's not in living memory. And, you know, it's forcing us to re-examine our values, our beliefs, who are we? And what is proving to us is that we are not in isolation as communities, as neighborhoods, as countries, as continents. Health and well-being is not a partisan issue. It's very interesting to me that countries that have been low income and middle income who have dealt with SARS, who have dealt with Ebola, had the infrastructure in place and the understanding of how to implement it much, much better than the more highly developed countries. I mean, for example, Joe, I know that you have spent time in New York. We have all seen that, you know, one of the highly developed so-called civilized societies in our world has suffered greatly in New York, and yet you wouldn't think it. And it's truly a way of how we think about our own national security and threats to it. You know, we cannot deal with this in a partisan issue. And essentially, we all have to spend this time learning from COVID of, you know, how do we work together? We are all interconnected, we are all interdependent. And one of the things that has come to me more than ever before is that we are all just one human family. And what happens in some remote, distant part of the world will affect me sitting here in my comfortable apartment in Edinburgh. You know, we all have to work together, and we have to find ways of cooperating with health, with infrastructure, with the economic aspects of the pandemic. These are times where I am particularly struck by the gulf in the inequalities in the world between the haves and the have-nots. It is not this pandemic treating everybody the same. The inequalities that were present and embedded in so many of our societies have increased. So we should take this time, this hiatus, this pause to actually rethink, how are we going to live in the future? I don't want to go back to what the normal was. I want to be in a world where we are looking at our environment more carefully, our climate more carefully. We're looking at the foods we put into our body more carefully. Ashraf, who is Nassim's guest, spoke very eloquently about the effects of food on the body. So this is giving us an opportunity to evaluate and examine where we go from here.
Well, I know where we go from here is that, unfortunately, I have to let our viewers know that this time has now come to an end, but on Thursday evening at 6 p.m., we'll have a much longer interview with Dr. Parris, and we hope you'll tune in then. As you were speaking today, I was thinking about karma. You know, karma is the sum of a person's entire actions throughout their life. And whether that be Nassim, your guest, talking about food, or whether it be Mr. Zuhair talking about letting things go in your past life, or your discussion about community, how people come together, as we have through the Edinburgh Interfaith Association, to promote the healing of our wounds as a society. I really think, as a result of your wise words today, Ruhy, that the karma of the actions of you as a doctor and of all of us in the interfaith community will bring us out of the pandemic to a much better place than we ever were before. So thank you for helping us to move along in that journey, and I look forward to the longer interview on Thursday. Over to you, Ian.
Will do. Thank you so much for that, Ray. There's a lot to really digest and to reflect on, and a lot of what we've been talking about are inequalities. Unfortunately, we all know that some communities have been more affected by this coronavirus than others, and we perhaps will touch on that with my very special guests, Cynthia. Well, thank you for being with us today, Cynthia. I know you're so busy at the moment.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. I am busy with a lot of things just now. We had the protest a few weeks ago, the Black Lives Movement protest, and I think what...
Oh, we're frozen. So I think oh, you're back.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
You have returned. You were just talking about the protest.
Yes, I think, yes, after the protest, we've been busy trying to find ways of dealing as a community on how we move forward. The biggest thing for us, I've noticed as a community, is we seem to need permission to bleed. You know, we don't easily talk about our pain or what we need as a community. We've been categorized as strong people. So even though we're hurting, even though we're bleeding, we carry on. And the danger is that there isn't any immediate healing with this pretense. So the damage goes on and on and on, not just physically, but mentally. And as you know, with trauma, it's passed down generations. So if I have unhealthy ways of being as a mother, I pass that on to my children. And even if I am pregnant, because of the way science is and how we are wired, I am able to pass that on to an unborn child. So this whole Black Lives Movement thing has been really good for us to actually face things we've been ignoring for a very, very, very long time. We have to accept, we say it to other people, but we have to believe and accept and show that we value our lives as much as we value the lives of other people. In society just now, inequality, it seems Black people's lives may not matter as much. And to an extent, we have believed that, and we have minimized our needs, we have minimized our contributions, we have minimized everything we have to say has been minimized, sometimes by us as a community. We're guilty of that as well. And sometimes by the system, because this is just the way the system is. So what we're doing just now is really, we are needing more people from the community to help the community with mental health, not just in nursing, but we're needing more people to train up as psychotherapists, as counselors, because growing up, something that we never knew much about was mental health. In my language, there's one word for anything to do with mental health, and that's, it translates to madness. There's no bipolar, there's no schizophrenia, there's no depression, there are no degrees of it. It's madness, and it's frowned upon. Nobody wants to talk about it. Coming to the UK, a lot of people from my community started to get into nursing, and we began to learn as a community that this was real, and this was something so big we couldn't just push it under the carpet. We needed to find language for it, not just in our studies, but we began to find language for experiences that we had had in childhood traumas, in marital trouble, in grief issues. We began to find language for it. And it was like we suddenly woke up and realized, wow, this thing is real. But by the time we've realized that this thing is real, the pain, the wounding, that bleeding is so deep. The community is needing so much assistance with mental health issues. And, you know, like I said, we are so good at look like everything is okay. You know, you see me, you want to see a strong Black woman, and that's okay. But I also have permission to say when I'm not strong. I also have permission to say when I'm needing help, and for that not to be frowned upon, not just by the outside community, but also from my community. We need to learn grace, to give each other freedom, permission to be real. You know, we're talking about the coronavirus and how it was
just frozen a little bit.
She's such a good speaker, isn't she?
Yeah, she's very good.
Powerful, yeah.
Let's give her a second to see if she comes back.
Well, there's roll the video.
Yeah, we'll make roll the video in a minute. There's a lot obviously to take in there. And interestingly, over the last couple of days, I was reading some of the work of Dr. Joy DeGruy in America, which is talking about a lot of this trauma, and I was speaking to Cynthia Gentle about this, and people who have just joined us again, I should remember to introduce Cynthia again, well-known, wonderful jazz singer, as well as being an activist behind the Black Lives Matter movement. I was just mentioning this, Cynthia, before you kind of disappeared in your network, that I was reading with Dr. Joy DeGruy was talking about how trauma experienced by African Americans has been passed down generations, just similar to what Cynthia is saying, that there is research around that. And, you know, I've encountered similar research also, people in terms of those who survived the Holocaust or other genocides, that this trauma can go through generations, and you can inherit just what Cynthia is saying. And it's quite interesting. These are kind of cultural stereotypes that some cultures are expected to man up, just be strong, always be strong. And actually, there has to be times where we have to admit our vulnerability, or when we do need help. And also, a lot of what Cynthia was saying resonates with me. Also, I did some research around dementia, and I found, similar to what Cynthia was saying, in the other cultures, and a lot of other Asian cultures, there are no word for madness as well. That, you know, the symptoms we have for mental health problems, they can't relate to that. So it's very interesting, a lot of what you're saying, and there is a great need for as you say, healing and coming together, which is great about a lot of some of the work that you're doing. You are encouraging people to have a voice. You are encouraging people to seek help when they need it, and importantly, you are encouraging them to kind of celebrate what is good within their culture, remember what is good within their culture. Touching on just what we're talking about today around, you've talked quite a lot about mental health. You're a kind of multifaceted person. You have all about you, health and beauty. You're also doing therapy. What role do these, and you're also a musician as well, what role do these different things have in people's mental health? So if we talk about what role does music have, for example, do you think?
So I'll tell you how all this came to be, starting with the salon.
Yeah.
The salon has always been a place for women to come and obviously get their nails done and hair and everything. But there's always been another side to the salon that's unofficial. And it's almost like we talk in the salon. We are vulnerable with each other, you know, and we support each other, right? And so after, I've been running the salon for nearly 20 years now. And in that time, I've seen that there is a need for us to be able not just to dress up what's going on inside. And so I spent the last 5 years studying psychotherapy. And what I'm trying to do is to marry the physical with the emotional, because they are linked, right? You know how massage is connected to the body, and how your thoughts have presence and they can impact your body. All of that, just join it all together and help people move forward, help people break cycles of unhealthy ways of thinking. You know, I want to encourage, maybe set up an atmosphere for people to come for talking therapies, which isn't necessarily the traditional white room. You know, it can be in a salon setting. It can be anywhere really. But the thing is to encourage people to begin to talk, because you cannot begin to look for healing if you cannot name your wound, if you cannot name your trauma, if you cannot talk about your past without crying, if you cannot describe the experience, you know, that's trauma in itself. But you need to begin to name what you're wanting by knowing where you've been and what you've been through. Yeah. So for me, I'm a single mother. I've got a 17-year-old son. I suffered from postnatal depression for a period of nearly 2 years, and I had it really bad. And for myself, I didn't know what was going on with me. I thought there was something wrong with me. I had a child. I was supposed to be happy. I just couldn't understand why I had no energy. I had no energy to get up and go to work. I was so numb. I felt nothing. You know, I had just set up the business. I opened the shop when I was 6 months pregnant.
Wow.
And I had this baby and I was happy, but I just had no energy. And so even when people used to come into the salon, it would take so much energy for me, not just physical, just even emotional, to interact with them. But that was part of my healing. You know, I met different people. I met people who were on their own journeys. I met people who were compassionate. I met people who were kind. And I met people who took it as an opportunity to kick me while I was down. And that's not even about me. That was about them and their journey. So I didn't take that personally. But I realized that everybody is on a journey. And what we put out there is just is just what's happening in our minds magnified.
Yes.
So I then found music. I then found music. And it happened by accident that I ended up at a jazz club in Edinburgh. But then it gave me life, because I was going to this jazz club every single weekend, and we would sing and talk and just have a great time with people who have become really good friends. And I sort of moved away from just singing jazz, because I didn't just want to do covers. I wanted to put my experiences into music and my own emotion in my own language. So some of my songs are in Shona, which is the other language from Zimbabwe. And so music for me is, I feel so alive when I'm singing. And really without music, I feel as if I'm wilting. And it's a really good thing for me mentally. It keeps me in check, you know.
Wow.
There's a song for every mood.
Yeah, I never knew that about you, and it's wonderful to hear that, you know, that music was part of that healing process for you. And I think music, I think it has so much healing power. It can heal us in the inside, but also can bring us together and bring down heal other divisions that people have. And on Thursday, we'll be a longer interview that we're going to do soon that you'll be able to see on Thursday, where we talk more about music. Because what a lot of people don't know, which makes me cry sometimes, is not everyone knows Cynthia Gentle's own wonderful music that you've just mentioned there. They do know you a lot for these covers, and your own music is just so stunningly beautiful. It's very, very special if people come on and hear some of your tracks, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later, and show people where they can find out more about that music. Just before, and we're going to play something I think on Cynthia shortly, just to end the show. Do people have some reflections from today? Or should I say, Cynthia, just before we do that, do you have any one message that you want to bring to people? Because you've talked a lot about a lot of things going on just now. So, for example, if people want to help with the movement, what can people do? What could wider people do to help in terms of Black Lives Matter movement or the fight for equality? What would you say?
Well, speak up, speak up.
Okay.
I'm running an 8-week course here in Edinburgh, conversations between Black people and white people. I'm going to send the event link somewhere on your page for genuine, honest conversations. White people and Black people, ask me those questions you've always wanted to know. And there's no judgment. It's a respectful atmosphere. So we get to learn to know each other, you know, better.
Okay. That's great, thank you. So just before we wrap up with a great video from Cynthia, do people have any reflections from today? I mean, there are a lot of things that are going to be in my mind today, and a lot of it is about, you know, I think it's about not being a slave to our past is one of the things that's in my mind today. But I think...
I agree. There's so many wonderful gems from all our guests today, but one thing that I'm actually, and it's a responsible act that, you know, if I'm suffering in some way, I need to make peace with the past, because if I don't, that will continue, not with just me, how I interact with everybody around me. So that's a responsible step that I need to take, to acknowledge and to do something about it, so it doesn't continue with the generations.
You know, that reminds me of something Ruhy said about community, and how healing is not something that an individual necessarily does by themselves. There is the need for, yes, the medical community, healers, complementary therapies, but there's also the need for the spirit. And I think the human spirit is best healed when you're part of a wider community who support you and love you and care for you. So Cynthia, thanks for bringing all that love, and I would like to join your group.
Good, yes, good. I'm going to put the link on the page.
That's
Please
great.
do join, yeah.
That's great. So just before, we're just about to play a song from Cynthia. I think just thank Mr. Zuhair Girach for coming on, Dr. Ruhy Parris, Cynthia Gentle. There's so much that we're going to take in, I'm going to walk away with today. I'm going to try and not be so affected by my past, and thinking about how things even in childhood have affected me, and not be over-contained with all these negative emotions, and think of how I treat other people. So much has come in today. But we're going to play off with a wonderful happy song, I think, to leave today. I think it might be All of You. I think is that the song we're playing with?
All of Me.
All of Me. Yeah, All of Me, of course. Over to that song just when they're ready to play it.
All right. All of me. Why not take all of me? Can't you see I am no good without you? Take my lips. I want to lose them. Take my arms. I'll never use them. Your goodbye left me with eyes that cry. How can I go on, Bill, without you? You took the part that once was my heart. So why not take all of me?
I'll be there.
All of me. Why not take all of me? Can't you see I am no good without you? Take my legs. I want to lose them. Take my arms. I'll never use them. Your goodbye left me with eyes that cry. Baby, how can I go on, dear, without you? You took a part that was my heart. So why not take all of me? Baby, on me, why not take all of me? Can't you see I am no good without you, Paul? Take my lips. I want to lose them. And take my arms. I'll never use them. Your goodbye left me with eyes that cry. How can I go on, dear, without you? You took my best. Now come on and take the rest. Come on, baby. Take all of me. Come on, Bill Slucker. Take all of me. Oh,
Thank you everyone for joining us.